Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ video, episode number 980. As we get closer to 1,000 episodes with all the news that's out right now, we're going to get to 1,000 possibly before August 16th. But the plan right now is August 16th. That is the date. Mark it on your calendar if you haven't already for episode number 1,000 of NoDQ video. A lot of things to talk about and cover, so let's get down to your questions today. First one comes from Andrew. Do you think AJ Styles winning the US title was so they could do the rematch at Battleground and have AJ face a big name at SummerSlam? I have gotten a lot of questions about AJ Styles winning the US title at Madison Square Garden, and what a crazy day Friday was between AJ winning the title, Austin Aries being released, and Dixie Carter announced for WWE 24. It was a very interesting Friday. We have not seen a title change at a WWE live event all that often. It's been a while. We did see a few NXT title changes over the past year or two, but on the main roster, it's been a long time. I cannot even remember the last time that there was a title change on the main roster at a WWE live event. Now, I've seen a lot of different theories on why this was done. I mean, the obvious one is WWE is trying to boost house show attendance, and by doing a title change, that tells fans that if you miss a house show, you might just miss something important. I like the idea of doing this every now and then just to spice things up a little bit and get people talking. I think that's a positive. And the fact that it's a Madison Square Garden moment, and because of the fact that WWE doesn't do televised shows from MSG anymore, I think it's nice every now and then at the live event when it's at Madison Square Garden to do something special so you can still have those MSG moments. And then there's talk that Owens might be injured. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully there's nothing serious going on with him. That would be really unfortunate. I've seen the crazy rumors that people think Owens violated a wellness policy, and I think that that's just jumping to conclusions. My guess is it was probably done for the reason of drawing interest in the house shows. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. I think AJ Styles was probably going to win the US title one way or another, whether it was at Battleground or beforehand. Just because it looks like right now the WWE title picture is not going to involve AJ Styles, which I think is unfortunate. I think AJ should be the guy to beat Mahal, but realistically, it looks like it's going to be Cena. The fact that they're building up Cena as Mr. America, not the guy wearing the mask, Mr. America, but just in general, trying to do this USA thing with John Cena and have Cena win that 17th title. So you got to have something for AJ to do in the meantime, and I guess him being the United States champion at least gives him a title and gives him something while he's not the WWE champion and not in the WWE title picture. This one comes from Clayton. With Kevin Owens losing the US title, do you see him going for the WWE Championship? No. First of all, we have Jinder Mahal, who's a heel, as the United States champion, and that would not make sense to do a heel versus heel match. Like I said, it looks like it's going to be Mahal and John Cena for the time being, and I could see that feud dragging out over several months. So I do not think Owens is going into the WWE title picture anytime soon. I've said this before, I do think eventually WWE should turn Kevin Owens face. I think that because of the fact that the fans are cheering for him already, and he has to really do these extreme measures to get himself booed, I think you just go with the flow. And if the fans are cheering for the guy, make him a face, you know? I think Owens can work well as a babyface. I think he can work well as a heel, but people just naturally like the guy. So I say why fight it and just go with the fans want. But then again, this is WWE, and their attitude is, well, we're going to do whatever we want, you know? They push Roman Reigns. If the fans fight it, they'll do whatever they feel is best for their business, whether the fans care for it or not. Their idea is what they think is best is what's best. Got this one here from Robin. Hey Aaron, top 3 opponents for Kurt Angle when and if he does wrestle again. And what would you do to build up the match? My top 3 opponents for Kurt Angle, if this was a situation where Angle was very healthy and could do a very intense match with anybody on the roster, Seth Rollins would be an obvious choice with the whole WWE 2K18 thing. Turn Rollins heel against the babyface Kurt Angle. I love that idea. The big question is, can Kurt Angle do a match with Seth Rollins that would live up to fan expectations? Could Angle, at his age, keep up with Rollins? And could Angle avoid getting seriously hurt in a match with Seth Rollins? So that's a big question, but I'd love to see that one. Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. Rematch from TNA seems like an obvious one. Maybe do a storyline where Samoa Joe's out of control and Kurt Angle has to come out of retirement to settle a score with Samoa Joe. I like that idea. And then Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles is the third match I'd love to see. Yeah, I think Kurt Angle versus Rusev would make sense, but again, it's the USA versus the Foreigner again, and I think that's just played out. And because we're seeing that with Rusev and Cena now, doesn't feel like it would be the right timing to do that at this stage of the game. So that would not be in my top 3. I mean, I suppose if Angle could do like half a dozen matches, then yeah, a match with Rusev would make sense. But if he could only do 3, the 3 I just mentioned would be my ideal choices. This one comes from Sean T. Flick. AJ Styles has been endorsing Chad Gable on social media. Do you see Gable getting a push? If so, what is his ceiling? Interesting question here. I think it's definitely too soon to break up American Alpha. I think that they should turn heel and do something new with those guys. Like I said in the previous video, maybe bring back Shelton Benjamin and form a new Team Angle-like faction with Shelton Benjamin taking American Alpha under his wing. I like that idea, but I think it's too soon for them to go separate. I think both guys will get lost in the shuffle. And Chad Gable, a lot of people like him, but I like Jason Jordan too, and I think he has a good look. Jordan does. So I think there's potential for him, perhaps even more than Chad Gable. I mean, Gable is a great wrestler, but he does lack the size, and I wonder if him as a single star, he'll get lost in the shuffle. And I really haven't seen a lot on the mic from either of them. So it is a big question if those guys can really do well on their own. I just think right now they're stronger as a unit than being separate. This one comes from Count Out TV. Do you think Austin Aries asked for his release because he didn't want to be stuck in the lackluster Cruiserweight division? That appears to be one of the factors at this point. There's been reports about that. There's been reports that Aries was injured, and maybe it was a combination of both. Aries was hurt, and he was frustrated with his spot in the company, and his attitude is it's not worth all the bumps and bruises to be stuck in the Cruiserweight division on 205 Live. Maybe that was his attitude. Maybe he feels if he can go off on his own doing the indies, he can work a lighter schedule, make good money, and be a bigger deal. Maybe he feels he's better off not being in WWE right now. So you have to look at it that way. If I was Aries, I mean, I would be frustrated with not being the Cruiserweight champion. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, why he did not win the title. I mean, I said this back at WrestleMania. It was time. Aries had a good run, or excuse me, Neville had a good run as Cruiserweight champion. And to me, it made sense for Aries to win the title. And then that match getting pushed back to the kickoff, I mean, we're seeing a pattern here. We saw it with Ryback. Ryback was in the WrestleMania kickoff match, and then a couple months later, he goes home. He leaves. And then the same thing happens with Austin Aries. So you have to keep in mind, these guys have pretty big egos. And you really have to have a big ego to make it in wrestling. And when you are put into the kickoff match, when you feel you should be a bigger star and you should be in a more high-profile match, you're going to be frustrated. I mean, even CM Punk not being in the main event, the guy was frustrated with his position in the company and walked off. All these guys, I mean, if you're not in WWE to be a main eventer, then why are you there? I mean, that's the general idea. Everybody is trying to get that top spot, and if you're not trying to get that top spot, then why be there in the first place? So I could definitely see the frustration with Aries being stuck in 205 Live and feeling that he does have a ceiling. We'll see what happens, you know, going back to that previous question about Chad Gable, what's the ceiling for that guy? If he feels there is a ceiling, who knows how long he'll be in WWE. If he feels he's the best and he should be in the main event and he can't get there, at some point you have to say, you know, maybe it's time to go somewhere else where you can make decent money, maybe even better money than in WWE, and not take quite as many bumps and bruises and have more control over your schedule. And you look at Cody Rhodes, he seems to be doing really well for himself. So we'll see if more guys end up leaving because they get frustrated with their spots. I mean, everyone wants to get into WWE, but once you're there, if you're not able to reach a certain level, then, you know, it's not such a big deal anymore. You know, you get there and then you realize maybe WWE isn't all it's cracked up to be. This one comes from Resident Sleeper 22. With Austin Aries' release, should WWE move Enzo to the Cruiserweight division after his feud with Cass? They could use the star power. The Cruiserweight division needs something. They definitely need the star power. Is Enzo that guy? I did post a poll on NoDQ, and it seems like a lot of fans like the idea of Enzo going to the Cruiserweight division. I'm not sure. I mean, I say give it a few weeks or maybe even a few months and see how he's doing on the main roster. But if he's going nowhere after a couple months, then maybe that would be a good idea. Because right now I'm looking at the Cruiserweight division, and to me there's really nobody with the star power to beat Neville for the title. Now some will argue against that idea of Enzo going to 205 Live, saying that, well, Enzo isn't really good enough in the ring to compete with the Cruiserweights. But look at the Cruiserweight division. These guys are being watered down. They're not really doing all the crazy stuff that they were doing during the Cruiserweight Classic. They're doing all these skits and trying to make these guys sports entertainers. So if you're going to do that, you're going to take that approach to the Cruiserweight division, then you might as well use Enzo. You might as well put him in there, so at least you have some star power and fans have a reason to tune in. And with Aries gone, you need an interesting personality and a guy who's strong on the mic. Aries was arguably the best mic person they had. I mean, Neville's doing well. Neville's doing really well. It's more about that heel character that I think is working well for him, and just the fact that he's very well-rounded. He can do the high spots, he can cut promos, and he's just a very solid performer all around. But they need more guys like that, and at the very least, they need some good characters on 205 Live if it's going to have any chance of succeeding. This one comes from Brett. Is there any instance you would like to see Undertaker for maybe one more match, maybe go out on a high note? And he says he's a first-time asker with that hashtag PAIV1. But Brett, I'm pretty familiar with you on Facebook. Are you really a first-time asker? But one way or another, I'm here to answer the question. So I would say no. I think after that ending at WrestleMania 33, that should be it. To me, that was his send-off. If they did not do that, maybe if Undertaker won the match at WrestleMania 33, I'd say do Undertaker versus Cena, but I think that should have been done this year, and they went with Undertaker and Reigns instead. As much as I would like to see Undertaker versus Cena, now I think it's time for Undertaker to call it a career. I do not think that he should come back for another match. I think the money match at WrestleMania 34 is Roman Reigns and John Cena. That's the match I think they should do. But who knows what's going to happen if WWE's going to do Roman Reigns versus Cena, or if they're just going to go with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, which that's been the big rumor for the longest time, and I've been very vocal about it. I think they should do it sooner. I'm not really a fan of dragging that match out for 34 and having Reigns beat Lesnar. To me, it's a yawn fest. Not interested in seeing it again. Even though the 31 match was pretty good, don't really have a desire to see that match at WrestleMania again. I think they should just get it over with. Alright, got this one here from the Dark One. Is Del Rio a childish person shooting on WWE wherever and whenever he can? Should he just move on? He is Alberto El Patron, not Del Rio, although I like to call him Del Rio, just to troll him. I would say call him Del Rio just to get him worked up. Yeah, I think that it's making him look really bad to keep criticizing WWE. He's trying to be cool by doing it, but it's fine if you do it one time. But the problem is we've seen almost every former WWE guy that goes to TNA/GFW do this, where they shoot on WWE, and it's old now. It's an old routine, and El Patron doesn't come off as cool by doing it. He comes off as very bitter and pathetic, quite frankly, that he has to keep running his mouth about WWE. He's like the ex-boyfriend or the ex-girlfriend who just cannot let it go, and he has to keep criticizing his ex. So yeah, I think it does make him look pretty weak to do it. I think he needs to just cut it out, focus on what he's doing in TNA. WWE doesn't even acknowledge it, so it's not like you're offending them or anything. If WWE was responding to it, then yeah, I would take advantage of it. But if WWE's not taking the troll bait, then you just need to stop. But some people out there don't learn. There's certain people out there on the internet that will continue to rip into somebody and they get no response from that other side, and it just makes them look really bad. Alright, got this one here from Duran Harris. What is the best way to use more superstars without creating a new show? Why is the WWE getting so many stars and not using them? Clearly, it would be nice if somebody knew the answer to that, but there's no real good solution as to what to do. I do feel maybe WWE is hiring too many people, but at the same time, part of the problem is finding the right ways to utilize people, playing to their strengths and hiding their weaknesses, and finding creative ways to get guys and gals on the TV shows. Like I said this past week, I do think it was a good idea to do that interview segment with Mike and Maria and having Sami Zayn there doing the stretches and interrupting their video and apparently ruining the feed. There's nice ways to get people on television, effective ways where they can get exposure. But yeah, it is a problem right now when you have so many guys under contract and so few spots. You have limited spots, and you have a situation where a lot of guys are not being used. And there's that saying, out of sight, out of mind. TV time is really important, and when you're not on TV, then people are going to quickly forget about you and lose interest in you unless you're a top tier star. You know, it's going to be bad to not have that television exposure. So when you're trying to make new stars, it's really important to have those guys on television every week. The problem in WWE is they have so many guys, and then WWE decides to push one guy for a week or two and then move on to the next person, and it really doesn't result in anybody getting over. It just results in a bunch of people getting TV time and then WWE not really capitalizing on it and moving on to the next person before that person can get any kind of real momentum. So that's one problem. If you're going to go with somebody, I think you need to go with them and give them a real legitimate shot at succeeding, you know, at least 6 months, if not longer. Got this one here from Andy Hall. Do you think WWE has Joe put up a good offense against Brock? Do you think WWE has Joe putting up a good offense against Brock, or do you see domination similar to Brock and Cena? I really hope it's competitive. I think that for Joe to really gain something out of this, he needs to have a strong showing. It should not be a one-sided match. Samoa Joe should really take Brock to the limit, perhaps more than anybody else who has not defeated Brock Lesnar. I would say this is back and forth, and Joe comes very close to beating Lesnar, but comes just a little bit short, and that can set up a potential rematch between the two of them down the line, and Joe comes off strong in defeat. I think the best way to book this is for Joe to lose, but lose in a way where he comes off like the real deal and a guy who could beat Brock on any given night, and this just did not happen to be his night. That's how I would do it, at least. Got this one here from Martin. What is happening with Adam Cole, and when do you think he will end up in WWE? Interesting question, because he did not appear over the NXT TakeOver weekend. A lot of people were thinking maybe he would show up in the crowd at the TakeOver pay-per-view. That did not happen. He has not appeared at the TV tapings. So what's going on? Is he coming in or not? Is WWE going to save him for the Brooklyn show? I'm not sure at this point. I think WWE should sign him, but going back to that previous question, you have so many guys in WWE. Maybe Adam Cole might have second thoughts about going to WWE right now. It's all about the timing. AJ Styles came in at the perfect time because you had a lot of guys injured, and that opened the door for AJ Styles to come in and immediately be a big star, because they needed some fresh blood in WWE with so many guys being hurt. AJ Styles was in the right place at the right time, and that worked out for him. When you look at some of these other guys and you see how people like Chad Gable are struggling to get noticed, and Austin Aries is requesting his release from the company, if you're somebody like Adam Cole, you might be having second thoughts about coming to WWE. And you look at somebody like Kenny Omega, who decided to stick with Japan, and he's doing really well for himself. Cody Rhodes is doing well, as I mentioned earlier. Maybe the grass isn't greener in WWE. Maybe the timing just isn't right. So if you're Adam Cole, I mean, you got to be taking all these different scenarios into consideration and keeping your options open. If the time is right, if WWE really wants Adam Cole, they should have no problem getting him. But if they're not really making a big deal out of him, and they're not making the right offer for him, then maybe he's better off doing something else. This one comes from Tyler Joseph Smith. Neville has improved greatly since turning heel. What other stars do you believe have that hidden potential? Well, the obvious one is Roman Reigns. Turn him heel and see what he can do with his character, but then he would just get boos, and he likes the loud reactions where everybody's making noise. So maybe that's the new attitude. Maybe everybody should just be a shade of gray, and maybe everybody should be force-fed so everybody gets a reaction. I mean, it's really weird. It's a really weird era we're living in right now in WWE, where the biggest stars over the past several years, like John Cena and Roman Reigns, are guys that have not been pushed organically. Well, in Cena's case, I mean, I think he was for the beginning part of his career, but with Reigns, from day one, they were grooming him to be the top guy, and that's why there's a lot of fan resentment, because Reigns was labeled immediately as the guy that was going to be the face of the company. But I definitely feel changing the characters from babyface to heel can really benefit these guys and give them a new creative avenue to explore their characters and take their characters to new places. I mean, the perfect example from history was The Rock. When he was Rocky Maivia, he went heel and he rediscovered himself and really came into his own. Reigns can benefit, perhaps. Dean Ambrose is somebody I've mentioned many times. And American Alpha, as I mentioned earlier, maybe them going heel would help them, turn them into these cocky, arrogant amateur wrestlers who think they're better than everyone else. I mean, to me, it just works naturally for those guys, and, it would give them a new lease on life in WWE. That'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Video. Check out the other videos. It's been a very busy week. This Sunday, WWE Great Balls of Fire, hashtag WWE Balls. Check out NoDQ.com for coverage. And again, August 16th, episode number 1000 of NoDQ Video. Please spread the word, and I will see you guys next time.